Hey, okay. Good morning, everyone. It was nice to spend a few minutes saying hello to everyone. And this is the June Astrology 2026. Before we begin, I just want to mention to you to have your charts next to you. And I'm going to have time for questions. If you feel more comfortable writing it in the chat, you're welcome to do that, but I'll have room for people to speak. And I wanted to announce that I have an ongoing dream group going that um, is welcoming new people. If you want to work with your dreams, where we share our dreams and we look at the meaning of the dreams and as far as what those symbols mean to us, to the dreamer. It's a wonderful little group. If you're interested, let me know. The next one starts June 10th. It's a Wednesday nights at 5, I believe. Okay. So let me see how I want to start today. Um, okay, I'm going to start by sharing with you that Maura sent me an article by the regenerative practitioner named Ernesto van Peebork. If you know how to say that correctly, Maura, let me know. And this article, which I can send to you as well when I send out the link to the recording, is called "What Pulls the Future into Being." And he talks about that the regenerative mind shift is not a change in what you think, it is a change in what you are capable of sensing. And what he was communicating resonated so much with how I perceive the gift of astrology. And I think that's a key word, the gift of astrology. So I wanted to bring his talk into this month and how it applies. So he said in his Substack article, what is the force that draws certain latent patterns out of the field of the potential and into the fact of the actual? And what does it mean for those of us trying to participate in civilizational transition to align with that force rather than simply push against the inertia of the present? What brings something that exists only as possibility into lived reality? So for me, this question and this perspective feels deeply aligned with astrology itself. Um, and this is the framework through which I view astrology, through which we can view astrology. And this is the force that's also in the individual soul within each of us, and why astrology can mirror as above, so below. So, astrology can support us to hold and embody and participate with a vision of potential not yet manifest. And this this is carried in meaning by the Aries vortex. This potential is there within the Aries vortex that's happening this year, started last year. And it's encouraging new views, new ways that we're perceiving reality, and creating systems to support those new views. So I want to encourage us to hold the possibilities of embodying this vision of healing and wholeness rather than to always define the patterns we're seeing in the astrology manifesting at lower levels of consciousness and frequencies. So when we go into contraction or fear or negativity and we look at the patterns, they're going to look one way. But if we can hold that vision of this is the potential, this is what could be, it lifts our moods, it lifts our frequency, and as we hold that together, it makes a difference. And that's why we have the monthly group. Can we hold these visions together? I just want to say also that Michael Meade talks about the whole same thing. He talks about it differently as he explores how each soul born bears a personal story that involves natural gifts intended to be given and an original agreement with the soul that includes an inherent sense of purpose in life. This is like the pull of the future. And at the same time, each family has fateful issues and inherited plot lines that strongly affect the dependent and defenseless child. And this is like our culture. The good news is that at each critical time in our lives, we have opportunities to awaken to the original agreement of the soul. To me, that's the pull into the future. That's the original agreement of the soul. It already exists within us, and it's in the future as we grow. The more difficult issue is that we must untangle ourselves from the limits of our family fate, which is the same on the collective level, even as we see ourselves moving through the limits of our culture, the narrow framing of what it means to be an American. Even as we move and feel those limits, as we feel those limits, we're in a process of knowing we are untangling ourselves from those, especially as that Aries vortex takes place with the rapid acceleration between Uranus and Pluto, channeling through the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. So the original agreements of our souls involve the threads of our destiny. So, as you all know, astrology reveals the living patterns seeking expression through time. That's what we're studying. We're studying the patterns, but they're alive, they're moving, they're shaping things. And it shows us the latent evolutionary potentials that are moving beneath the surface of both the individual life and the collective life. And so that's why we do the monthly group, to bring those living patterns that are seeking expression and those latent evolutionary potentials, to bring them out so that we can embrace them and we can live at that frequency in order to affect and allow ourselves to move into the future in renewed ways. So Ernesto writes, the movement of evolution seems to be the gradual unfolding of greater complexity, greater awareness, greater relationship, and ultimately greater participation in the living intelligence of the whole. So again, that's how we look at astrology. This solar system we're living in is a creative, intelligent system that from the eons we've learned to experience that intelligence through the patterns we see in the solar system between the planets. So as we look at the astrology of today, I'm encouraging you, and we want to see it through this lens. We want to see, okay, what would it look like through this lens? So the fearful and negative lens through which we can view astrology needs to be set aside so we can fully experience what can be possible without that interfering. Um, we all know and we've all experienced where we feel, as astrologers, where we feel apprehensive, even scared of a Saturn transit or a Pluto transit. And what we want to do is stay close to the core archetypal meaning of the planet. So the core archetypal meaning of Saturn is slowing down to get to the essence of things, what's not working anymore and needs to be cut away. So I say cut away because Saturn, as an archetypal figure, holds that scythe, where it's cutting away what's no longer life sustaining. What we're trying to do is move into a more life sustaining systems within ourselves um, and in the culture. Pluto, when we have those Pluto transits, it's a time of letting go. We're releasing something to be transformed. And we all know that this journey on Earth has its highs and lows, and sometimes it's very challenging. And yet, we're here from an astrological perspective, a metaphysical perspective, a Buddhist perspective, always to see things as a learning experience, because that's what grows our consciousness and our awareness. So I want to say a few more things from Ernesto's article before I go into what's going on this month. And he writes, at the level of fundamental particles, certain interpretations suggest that the boundary between past and future is more porous than it appears. The particle doesn't just carry a history. Under certain readings, it also responds to a destination. This is astrology for me. This is astrology. We can look at astrology as, oh, all those patterns of what Uranus trine Pluto means from the past. These are the patterns. This is how it's shown up. But we're also looking at the possible destination of where that can take us. Quantum physics, he goes on to say, restores the possibility that the present moment is not only pushed by the past, but also pulled by what could become. That's astrology. We're pulled by what could become. We could see, oh, I'm having this Saturn transit on my moon. I want to be aware of focusing in on the deeper levels, the deeper layers of my emotional responses and how I do my day to day. I feel that pulling me into the future rather than dread. um, so that the future is not only empty space we move into, but also a field of already existing possibility. That's astrology. That exists something like a gravitational influence on what happens now. And this is the invitation of the Aries vortex, which we'll see a visual of in a little bit. What possibilities of the ancient future? So we're looking at what he's talking about as the ancient future integration, the past and the future, the ancient future. And that's Aquarius. Aquarius is known as, in that phrase, ancient future. And why do we say that? Because it's the sign of innovation, revolution, technology in the future, with its ruler Uranus, but its traditional ruler Saturn is the oldest visible planet, an archetype of time, structure, lineage, the past, what's given form. But Aquarius is also the future emerging from something old. What has been enduring? So when we're in, like Pluto is activating Aquarius, we have Uranus in Gemini, which is in a trine, in a harmonious, activating aspect with that Pluto in Aquarius. It can mean that something radically new comes up and there's a rediscovery of something ancient that humanity has forgotten, like indigenous wisdom, like ancient contemplative practices being rediscovered through neuroscience, old communal values reappearing in new social forms, and mythic knowledge resurfacing through technology and global communication. So we would say, okay, Aquarius is a bridge between the epics. It stands 1 foot in the distant past, one in the future not fully born, just as it has 1 foot in the realm of the gods and 1 foot on earth. So it's to think about Aquarius as the sign that blends the ancient future, remembering forward, thinking about Uranus as the awakener, as Prometheus with the gift to the humans from the gods. So I want to remind us about this activation now that's going on with Pluto transforming and bringing to the forefront those Aquarian themes. And also Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius, now in the mental sign, the quickening sign of Gemini, in this harmonious alignment with Pluto and Aquarius. So Ernesto goes on to say, I'm just going to do a few more quotes. Ancient wisdom and future possibility are not separated by the distance we imagine. They're neighbors. Both exist in the same dimensionless field of potential. Both are available to the observer who knows how to reach them. The regenerative observer, or the astrologer, becomes sensitive to signals arriving from both directions of time, from the deep past as accumulated wisdom, and from the deep future as unrealized potential. And this is exactly what an astrologer is trained to do. So astrology maps out this vision if we have eyes to see. So let's begin the slides. Okay, I'm just checking the chat here for a minute and see if everything's okay. If you all notice something I'm doing wrong, you can just let me know. Something's not working. Okay, so this is the astrology for June, and this is what we'll be looking at. Let's see here. So we've already talked a little bit about that larger view, and we'll touch on the Aries vortex and the Aquarian time. Uranus is now in Gemini.
Sue, it says astrology for April.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm not going to change that now. That's funny. It should say June, of course. I make these slides especially for all of you each time, and sometimes I forget how to update my. So it should say for June. Okay, astrology in Gemini squares the nodes this month, which we're going to talk about. Venus conjuncts Jupiter at 25 Cancer on June 9th. Really great to take a look in the west when this is happening. And I would start looking now, and you'll be able to see them come closer and closer together. New moon's going to be in Gemini. And then Mercury went into Cancer on June 1st, and it's going to go retrograde June 29th. I think it's 26 degrees Cancer. We'll take a look at that. But that means it's going to stay in this water sign for almost 2.5 months, which is a long time for Mercury, the planet of thinking, the planet of communication, because it usually is in one sign for a month. But because it's going retrograde at the end of the month, it's in Cancer for a much longer time. So we're going to be talking about that, and you can start to think about where is Cancer in your chart, because this is the area of review for you. We'll touch on the summer solstice chart, and then at the end of June, Jupiter enters Leo. It hasn't been in Leo for 12 years, so it's a shift that we'll be feeling. And you can, again, look at your chart Where's Leo in your chart? Because this is the area of opportunity, of possibility, of some growth. Chiron's going to enter Taurus. It's been in Aries for a very long time. I'm not sure how long. Maybe somebody can give me that information, but it's been in Aries. Let's see if I can see. Um, yeah, hmm, since about 2018. 2018. Um, so about 8 years. And then we'll touch on the USA chart and have our conclusion. Okay. So here's the transits of today. There's Mercury in Cancer. Here's how close Venus and Jupiter are. And you can witness that at sunset, how close they are. Here's Uranus squaring the nodes. So if you have anything at around 2 Gemini or 2 in the mutable signs, which are Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, you may be experiencing this as well. So here you've seen this many times. I've shown you this visual many times as a depiction of Uranus trining Pluto, which is a compelling, fast-moving drive for change and transformation. And one way we can look at this with Pluto as the god of the underworld, Pluto will be bringing up the collective shadow and issues around power and greed. We see that happening. We're being able to see what's been hidden or below the surface of things. It's now very in our face. And that's part of this process of exposing what we've repressed. And then Uranus as the Promethean figures coming from above and disrupting things, causing crisis. And it's intensified by the trine to Pluto, and Uranus quickens that Plutonian process of bringing things up, having them be exposed, and then setting about for the transformation. But Uranus is also the awakener. And especially, I like to think of Uranus as a doorway to an expanded perception. Like, can we see beyond the confines of our conditioned way of thinking and seeing? So we might think of, again, this Pluto. So this is a different slide, but it looks the same. But Pluto bringing up the hidden past. And it's also the earthy ground of being. Oopsie. Earthy ground of being, and brings up that forgotten indigenous wisdom that's so connected with that earthy ground of being, while Prometheus is the awakener, a doorway to that expanded perception, bringing it into the future. And because they're in trine right now, there's this quick moving energy, compelling energy. And we could say, look at it like remembering forward. We could look at it like this disruption is moving us into transforming to another level of perception. So again, you've seen this before, and this is the Aries vortex. So the Aries vortex itself is Pluto trining Uranus, and Sedna's in there, the deep feminine, life as wholeness. And there's a fast-moving, harmonizing trine between them, which means things are getting disrupted. And we can see, like in our own life, what's being disruptive and how might we also step into the new, lean into the new, and allow that transformation to happen, or lean into a broader perception of who we are and what life is. And then the conjunction of Neptune and Saturn is at the midpoint. So it functions like a funnel where Neptune represents the reimagining of new beginnings in Aries, and Saturn wants to give it a form. Sedna conjunct Uranus. We've talked about this, and I feel strongly that the deep feminine is awakening. It's there for us to awaken more and more, to see through her eyes, um, to realize the interconnectedness of all things, to um, see holistically rather than linearly, to uh, feel into the depths, and it's being quickened by that conjunction with Uranus. So, in your own life, you might think about where you're feeling this type of intelligence coming in, a deeper intelligence. Maybe you're listening more to your dreams. Um, maybe you're taking action in terms of seeing things holistically. So we'll watch how that manifests over time. So again, this is today's chart. There's Sedna conjunct Uranus in the Aries vortex. There's the Aries vortex. So I would just encourage everybody to see uh, where you have Aries in your chart, anything from, really two Aries right now up to 14. That's trying to be reimagined into a new beginning, into a new perspective, where you might have Gemini and something's being awakened, something wants to start anew, something's being transformed. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah. Let's see. I want to go back a little bit before I get there. And I want to talk about um, Uranus trine Pluto, which is a defining signature of our time. And so, as you know, and I'm going to say again, Uranus as the awakener, it breaks open, it has the potential to break open fixed perceptions, and it interrupts old patterns. We can see this both in the positive and the negative because we know that just in the Trump administration, they've interrupted old patterns. But it also, because it's interrupting those old patterns, there's a bringing forth of revelation. And we can see that more and more um, teams and people are creating more sustainable systems to live by. Um, And Uranus represents intelligence arriving from the future that aren't quite yet embedded in the collective awareness, while Pluto is revealing, as we talked about, what's been hidden, denied, or repressed. Um, so we can think about the visionary mind of the future communicates its intelligence this way, outside the norm thinking, sudden synchronicities of insight, through connecting with each other, through communicating and sharing these visionary possibilities. And this energy then is heightened, especially because Uranus is in Gemini, and especially for the generation that has Uranus in Gemini, it'd be wonderful to devote time to this reflection about how sudden synchronicities might be affecting you, how you step out of the norm of thinking. So we might think of Uranus and Pluto as creating an evolutionary dialogue right now. Um, And so we're seeing this expression in renewed interest in indigenous knowledge systems, ecological consciousness, living systems theory, and the recognition that humanity is not separate from nature, but participates within the interconnected field of life. So the potential is here for what was dismissed returning. And so you might be thinking, well, I don't really feel that because it feels like the opposite is happening. And we've talked a lot about this because last year, 2025, Russell, I forget his last name, but the Trump official that created the 2025 um, playbook, he's at zero Aries, and he began this shift in the foundation to begin envision new systems. And that's what we saw unfolding in 2025. But it created an awakening where now what's coming in is the counter movement of what are the systems we're going to create to lead us into the future. And I feel like the discovery of Sedna is also supporting archetypal themes for recovering the deep, for recovering a deeper awareness of who we are. So, what I want us to think about is that the map, the patterns are there for the transformation to happen that can pull us into a life-sustaining future. So the questions to ask for ourselves, of course, is what's not life-sustaining in our own life, and how can we participate in that? And how is our thinking creating negativity? And that's part of what we might be experiencing as Mercury goes retrograde at the end of the month. Okay. So, what this chart is showing is that Pluto is conjunct the South Node of the United States chart. The South Node represents, as you'll remember, inherited patterns, old karma, established habits, and collective memories. And this may no longer serve us or serve our movement into the next phase. So, with Pluto conjuncting the South Node of the United States chart, which would happen once in 248 years, um, we're being asked to encounter our own shadow, this shadow of the past, bringing up issues of power, of exclusion, of technology, media, and control, and questions concerning democracy itself. So those old patterns that have been operating below the surface or unconsciously are becoming visible. What was buried is rising. That's the thrust of Pluto. And its purpose is for transformation. But first it has to bring it up. So that's what we're involved in. And you could say we've been involved in this for a number of years as Pluto's conjunct our natal Pluto um, in the house of values, worth, and it will continue to conjunct the South Node for the next couple of years, a year and a half or so exactly. So just to know the map, to know where we are in this territory, we're literally there's this deep past coming up for us to look at, to make decisions about. So while Pluto conjuncts the South Node, Jupiter, this is June 30th, Jupiter, as it goes into Leo, is going to conjunct the North Node. So we're going to have this pull of growth toward the future. And with the Leo North Node, it talks about for the United States, real growth is heartfelt leadership. That is North Node in the eighth house. That's challenging because to grow, it's pitting us up against the challenge of being entangled with others and needing to see the old behavior that's no longer working. So we go through a death rebirth process, which is the eighth house, which is Scorpio, for that renewal to happen. And so Jupiter is supporting this process. As Pluto brings up and out the past and the collective unconscious, old memories, Jupiter's inviting us to come from a more heart-centered place, to step into our leadership. Okay. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about Uranus squaring the nodes. And I'm just giving you a little time to think about what we just talked about. So Uranus is going to be squaring the nodes. And historically, when Uranus makes contact with the nodes, especially a square, often coincide with periods where history seems to speed up and unexpected developments occur. It's a time when assumptions are challenged. It's a time when sudden innovations can emerge and political structures become unstable. Something new is trying to come in. There's a shakeup of the old and something new trying to come in. So when was the last time Uranus was squaring the nodes, which is, calling in new narratives for the future? It can interrupt the momentum of the past. So when was the last time? The last time was 2007 to 2008. And that's when we had the first Black man elected to presidency. But this period also corresponded to or coincided with the collapse of the old financial structures, rapid expansion of the internet and the social network culture, and the beginning of many technological and social revolutions that fully emerged later. So when we look at Uranus squaring the nodes, it's a collective evolutionary crossroads. And here you see it. This is what it looks like. There's the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, squaring Uranus and Sedna. And, from evolutionary astrology, they would say that this is a moment when the future can't emerge through the existing structures that are in place. So something disruptive, that's Uranus, an awakening, and destabilizing enters the field and forces a reorientation. So the evolutionary astrologers call it a karmic turning point or skip step activation, which means we have to go back, we have to redo, we have to rethink about, we have to address this Uranus that is disruptive, destabilizing, and awakening in order that we can move into the North Node in Pisces and have more empathy or wholeness or collective consciousness is one way we could talk about it. So we are in that moment now. It's like humanity is at this crossroads and new possibilities are seeking expression. So I would say for yourself, what's wanting to awaken? What is old that no longer serves you? What's a more authentic expression for yourself? And how is the future trying to emerge through you? So what you want to do is you want to look at the beginning of the mutable signs to see if Uranus is aspecting any of your planets and the nodes are aspecting any of your planets. So that's Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces. You can look at the trines as well. You might think about Uranus trining the air signs, Libra and Aquarius. And there's this push, this momentum to lean into something new, lean into something that where you dare yourself to be more authentic, to come more fully into your expression, or to support that in those around you. Let go of old patterns. So we could say that the old stories are losing their ability to contain what's trying to be born at this time. And this is one of the reasons that astrologers are viewing this time period, mid 2026, as a significant turning point within the larger configuration of this Aries vortex that we've been in for a year and a half now or more. Because this Uranus square the nodes is like a trigger point, introducing unexpected events that is accelerating this evolutionary process. So I'm going to stop here for a minute and see if there's any insights or questions or comments.
I had a question. What was that phrase you used? Skip, step.
Yeah,
What was that? That was a good metaphor, but
it's
there was,
called the skipped step activation. So,
okay.
so if you study evolutionary astrology, like Stephen Forrest, Jeffrey Green, Mark Jones, they start looking at the chart they start looking at the nodes, and then they see if there's a planet that's squaring the nodes by in the natal chart, which is not that uncommon, or by transit. And so if it's in the natal chart, then it's highlighting for your growth, for you to go to the North Node, which is your growth. You have to deal with that planet in your natal chart that's squaring the nodes, meaning bringing more consciousness to it. For me, I have Neptune squaring the nodes. So I have to look at all those Neptunian themes in my life to be able and resolve them to some degree to be able to go to my North Node. So what are those themes of Neptune? Well, I could start with kind of its negative manifestation, which could be escapism, it could be alcoholism, it could be not having good boundaries, it could be letting myself just feel overwhelmed, feeling confused. Uh, and I have to look at those and where they are in my life because the chart is saying, Sue, you have to deal with this in this lifetime for you to grow. And it could also be, in what ways have I pushed some of those themes away? Like, for instance, Neptune is the imaginative forces, it's art, it's music, it's compassion, it's empathy. How am I not bringing empathy to myself? How have I pushed the imaginative realm away? So I hope that's helpful in thinking about
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of us have a planet squaring the node, so it'll be interesting for y'all to take a look at. I'm looking at this little note I made to myself, Yod to North Node from Neptune and Pluto. I think it's Yod to the South Node from Neptune and Pluto. Um, Well, to me, that's saying how timely it is for us to look at these issues and allow transformation to happen. Otherwise, we could stay locked into the past in a very analytical, mental way, and we've got to kind of come from the heart. Pisces. Leslie, I see a little raised hand icon here. Do you have something you want to say?
Well, I wanted to ask about the nodes themselves because, and I know this is personal, and if it's not, relevant to the whole group, just let me know. So I recently had, and it's within this Aries vortex on my chart as well. Um, my natal node squaring the transiting nodes, like all of them were squaring
Yeah.
and one another. And I recently, last month, in fact, had a experience a very, very bad accident where I had a near death experience. And I,
Mm.
prior to, you know, going or with that the whole period where those squares were active, I I don't know. It just felt like it was something personal and also collective at the same time based on the nature of what the experience was. And so I'm wondering if that configuration um would indicate such a profound life-changing experience for
Well,
my
I would be curious to see your
anybody.
chart, but it can definitely light up your nodal axis for sure and put pressure on it. Um, so, is your North Node in Gemini or Sagittarius?
Gemini.
Yeah. So maybe on one level, it's asking you to get really in your body and be more in present time, which
Yeah.
can be a Gemini North Node experience.
Hmm.
But I would look at the whole chart. Certainly, anytime we have nodal contacts, they're activating past to future, like what needs to change. So what awarenesses were brought up to you that kind of perhaps could have woken you up to a certain degree? And maybe you're having a Uranus transit on your North Node as well. If it's a,
That's coming up. That is
yeah,
coming up. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything before we go on?
Yeah, Sue,
Yeah,
what if you have a nodal return right
yeah.
now? How is that? What's the opportunity there?
Um,
Or
Good question. The nodal return, is it North Node nodal
North
return?
Node? Yes.
Yeah. Um, it's always going to encourage you and support you to come more into that North Node, to have compassion for yourself with that Pisces and empathy, to perhaps listen to your dreams. Um, and I think it's the support of the cosmos saying, now's the right time. What do you need to let go of that might be too perfectionistic, the Virgo? So it just really amplifies those themes, especially as Uranus squares the nodes. It's kind of like a breakthrough time. Where do you need to break through? You might look at issues around communication with the Gemini. Um, uh, how you're integrating things. And I would look at the houses, like what house is Uranus squaring those nodes happening? So it's really worthwhile, Julie, to take a little time to contemplate, like, what themes might be coming in that have to do with inclusiveness and empathy towards self and imagination, a service, and how could they be activated now? Or in what area with Uranus do I need to loosen things up and step into something new? Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, now we go to the sweet spot of the month. This is Venus conjunct Jupiter. It's one of the most beautiful alignments of the month. And as you all know, Venus represents relationship, beauty, harmony, attraction. What is it we value? It's a kind of open-heartedness um, in Cancer. And we say, well, Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So this is a big Venetian moment right now. And I'd say we're in it now. through the next couple weeks, even though the exact conjunction is June 9th. Wonderful time to get together with people you care about. Good time for the arts, writing, uh, painting, music, just gathering together and sharing. They bring generosity, possibility, optimism, creativity, renewed faith. It's a good thing to have right now. So you might look at where this is happening in your own chart. You see, this is June 14th. So this is looking west around 9 p.m. So I'd start doing that now if you can get to a view of the west. Those are the two most brilliant planets that we ever see. And I'm going to encourage you to feel into them. Regulus is the star of Leo over here. Here's the star of Gemini, and they're in Cancer. So here's the chart. Here you can see 25 Cancer. So here you can look at your own chart. What do you have at 25 Cancer? Um, so it's inviting us to imagine a larger future, which can be fueled by your own vision, by appreciation, by recognizing abundance where we might have not noticed it before, by honoring each other and just really honoring the beauty of the earth at this time. So, personally, you might ask yourself, what am I feeding right now in terms of my thinking, in terms of my feeling? Um, and what future are you encouraging? So anytime there's a conjunction, it's starting a new cycle of Venus and Jupiter. Look at what house it's falling in. So for me, it's the third house. I might be beginning new ways of thinking things, new ways of communicating things, maybe new relationships with siblings or with people close to me. What relationships, creative projects, and possibilities are standing out now? This is a great time for new beginnings here. You want to nurture this to grow. And then next, Venus will enter Leo. And then toward the end of the month, Mars enters Gemini. So this is June 14th at the new moon in Gemini. Lots of energy. New moon in Gemini. Great time to contemplate what you want to give form to over the next month, to write about it, to share it. Venus in Leo is very expressive, very artistic, and it's opposite. It's triggering the Aries vortex, as you can see. It's opposite Pluto, but it's trining Neptune. Good time for the arts, good time for imagination. Sextiling Uranus. Something new is wanting to begin at this time, and soon Jupiter is going to join it. And so moving toward the mid to late June and into July, that Aries vortex is going to get more powerful, meaning that Jupiter will go into Leo and trine Neptune and Saturn and sextile Uranus. So what do you want to give form to? This is, we always look at when Jupiter trines Saturn because it's a perfect time to manifest things, to think about what you want to give form to ground it. And so let's see, let's take a look at the next slide. This is a summer solstice, June 21st. Sun goes into Cancer. There you can see Jupiter and Mercury conjunct. Great time to communicate, to write, to plan things out. And here Jupiter's gonna soon trine Neptune, then Saturn. Let's see if there's, okay. So the summer solstice. I like to look at the summer solstice chart and see where the moon is. So it's in Virgo. So it has a more yin kind of expression in Virgo, and yet it's active. Mars is in Taurus, so this is a season where you can get a lot done if you want to do that. And I'll move on here. The full moon, which is at the end of the month in Capricorn. So what I want to point out here under this full Capricorn moon, Capricorn's an earth sign. It's a good time to think about your goals, think about what you're wanting to put in place. But even more importantly, I think, is that uh, Mars has gone into Gemini, finally left Taurus. There's a quickening as it activates the Aries vortex. You know, it can be a time where you get a lot done. You want to be sure you're in your feet, you're in your body, because when Mars conjuncts Uranus, you can be moving a little bit too fast. But this is an excellent time for writing, for learning, for teaching, for connecting in groups. What's going to be happening, though, at that point is Mercury's going to be going retrograde at 26 Cancer. So we could say when Mercury goes retrograde in Cancer, what are the emotional assumptions that need revisiting? This can be a really good time to contemplate your belief systems, see what's working, what's not working with Mercury conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter moving into Leo and Mars into Gemini. So toward the end of the month, definitely a quickening. Things start moving a little bit faster. Let's see. Here's the Mercury retrograde chart. Where in your chart is the sign Cancer, and what might you be reviewing? So Mercury went into Cancer on June 1st, and it stays in Cancer till August 9th. So what you want to do is look at where do you have Cancer in your chart? And the retrograde itself goes from 16, well, we could say 26 Cancer to 16, goes retrograde June 29th to July 23rd. So what is it transiting in this 26 Cancer to 16 Cancer? This is going to be real significant for the United States because we have so many Cancer planets. But thinking about your own chart, and thinking about wherever Cancer is in your chart, what are you reviewing? What needs to be looked at, and where do you need to slow down enough to go into contemplation about that? As we've talked about before, the planets and the way the planets move show that we're not just linear. So even though there's a quickening going on, this is the June 1st chart, and this is going to be at the end of June. Here we go. Even though there's a quickening going on, all of a sudden there's also a slowing down. You can't rush forward. So it wants us to review. It wants us to take stock of where we are. It wants us to take stock of where we are in terms of the collective. What is it we want to bring forward? And so that's through July 23rd. And it's worthwhile to think about remembering your dreams, paying attention to your intuition. Could be harder to communicate clearly because it's it's in a water sign. So it's stirring the deep waters of emotion during this long time in Cancer. This is the United States chart with the transit of Mercury. So Mercury on June 1st went into Cancer, and on the 29th, it's going to go retrograde and it go back to 16 degrees Cancer, almost on our sun, but it's going to be bringing a collective review for us about how power is used, how what our values are around money, what's happening to the media, how are we communicating with each other as Mercury goes retrograde 3 times over this opposition between Pluto and Mercury. So that period of time will be at the end of June through, well, the whole period of time, where here it says here, the whole period of time. No, I don't even have the whole period of time here. But what we want to think about is when it first hits that 16 degrees of Cancer, which is 16 degrees Cancer, that's May 25th. So we've already passed that. May 25th. No, wait, I'm sorry, I'm wrong there. 16. So that's June 13th. So we're coming upon that. June 13th through August 7th. That's how we look at the retrograde phase. So June 13th is when it first hit 16 Cancer. And whatever topics are brought up during that time, you want to pay attention to, because you may be reviewing those topics. And then it goes retrograde on June 29th. It goes direct on July 23rd, but it doesn't leave those degrees it's transited until August 7th. And that would be the integration time. So that's why it's so interesting to look at this time period of what's going on right when we're going through our country's 250-year celebration. We're reviewing our identity, as Mercury goes over the United States sun. So it carries a lot of significance. Questions concerning national identity, belonging, our homeland, citizenship, and just the United States collective memory may be up for us. It's very interesting that it's happening at the anniversary of our country. And at the same time, we're seeing that Pluto conjunct the South Node. So we may be revisiting fundamental questions about our country's values. Issues like, who are we? What do we stand for? What kind of future are we creating? So it's really potent time. It's kind of a setup for the November election as well. And then at the end of June, Jupiter goes into Leo. And it goes up to 16 Leo on September 13th. And it goes to, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. 16 Leo goes to 27 Leo, stationing opposite. Just seems, let me double check that. There's some, okay, I see what I was doing. It goes to 16 Leo on September 13th, where it starts that time period where it goes, it hits anything you have from 16 Leo to 27 Leo 3 times. And it stations opposite the USA moon. Do I have a picture of that? Later. Which means people are going to get really activated. This is like right after the elections in December. Um, and then it goes direct. It goes direct April 12th, 2027. So what I would say is look at where 16 Leo to 27 Leo is in your chart. This is an area where you're reviewing growth, maybe making new beginnings, um, what inspires you, eh, deeper contemplations on those issues. Uh, so it's interesting where it falls in the USA chart. So let's take a look. Before I do that, are there any other questions? Well, the one other thing I'd comment on is Chiron's leaving Aries and going into Taurus. And that happens June 19th. Be interesting to notice over that next maybe 7 years or so while Chiron's in Taurus. Now, Chiron's either the longest time in a sign in Taurus or the shortest time. I think it's the longest time. Like 26, so like 8 years, 8 years in Taurus. And I wonder if we will bring more awareness to care for our planet, to care for ecology while Chiron's in Taurus. The last time it was in Taurus was 1976 through 1984. Okay, so let's look at the United States. Lots of transits happening. This is for today. And one thing we see is transiting Saturn at 12 Aries is opposite the United States Saturn at 14 Libra. And Saturn will go up to 14 Aries. So it's really challenging our leadership out in the world. We could say, with these transits you're looking at that I'll define, we're a nation at a threshold. And we could say that the United States is moving through one of the most significant transitional periods in its history. I don't think you needed me to say that, as it's rather obvious. Certain things like the Pluto return that happened at the Revolutionary War, Neptune opposite Neptune, Uranus conjunct what Uranus Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War II. It seems like there's an activation of the possibility of transformation by those outer planets in their return. Pluto's contact with the South Node, as you see, and we've talked about, is exposing unfinished business from the past. That needs to be seen so that we can move forward. Uranus is approaching the Uranus return. So this would happen once in 84 years, happening right after the Pluto return while Pluto's on the South Node. It can destabilize familiar structures so something new can begin. But are here and then Saturn opposed Saturn, it's really bringing question into what is our leadership out in the world. Saturn can be the executive. It's saying that executive is being tested. Now we've got a double whammy for that because Saturn is also square the USA sun and it's going stationary there. So that means it's more intensified. There'll be limitations. They'll be holding the executive accountable. That'll be interesting to see in our country. But let me tell you how long it stays in that area, testing the executive, testing our sense of who we are. And it'll be from, it will be all of June all of July, all of August, and into September, that this holding, this confrontation is going on. And then Saturn will back up to 7 degrees. So coming close to squaring Jupiter, which is like holding the growth down, holding our expansion in place as it seeks to form a new inner foundation for our country. This is the process it's involved in. Saturn won't be finished with that process until it moves past the last opposition to Saturn, which is let me see. That date is April 2027. So we're in this kind of pressure cooker testing time as we go through the elections and into the next year, where Pluto's bringing up things from the past. Chiron, excuse me, is conjuncting the part of spirit. Interesting. Now, many of you probably don't know what the part of spirit is, but maybe you've heard of the part of fortune. The part of spirit, it is where we can go as we grab hold with intention to our destiny. And basically at the 29th degree, it says that we've been working on this, grabbing hold of our destiny and making a new beginning, Aries, for quite a bit of time. Why do I say quite a bit of time? Because 29 Aries is called the anaretic degree. It's like we're trying to finish up the Aries so we can go into the Taurus. But we have to look at the wounded masculine. We have to look at the wounds down in the foundation of our chart. Now, this has been going on since the Chiron return, which was a number of years ago. And, it's clear that we're seeing what those wounds have been and the need to address those so we can move on as Chiron goes into Taurus. I want to point out that the progressed moon is also on the United States Chiron. The progressed moon would take place conjunct Chiron. Let's see, how many years does it take to go around the chart? 2.5 years per sign times 12, 24, 30 years. It would take around 30 years to go around the chart. So every 30 years, that progressed moon would be in Aries and conjunct Chiron. But for me, what it says is that we're working at really deep levels in our country to address the wounds in our foundation. And they're being thrown up, they're being exposed during this time. You can see also the progressed sun is opposite Neptune. So there can be, big challenges with propaganda, controlled media, spin, but also it's a time to reimagine our identity. And we're just beginning this cycle. So if you look at the progressions, when you see the sun and the moon so close, we're just kind of pulling out of a time period where we can't quite see what the future is. And we're getting closer and closer to see when the progressed moon moves into that phase that says, we can see it now. We see it now. So I would say maybe another year before we really get a glimpse of what's coming into form, maybe a little bit more than a year. You can see, Chiron, progressed Chiron opposite the United States Mars, which is retrograde. So again, these themes of the wounded masculine are so strong. How do we rebalance the feminine and the masculine in our country. This is the day of the election in November, and this is a progressed chart. And why I wanted to show you this is there's two T-squares going on. So basically, let me say it simply, the time has come, the moon at 29 Aries before it goes into Taurus, where it's in a tense relationship with what has been hidden, what needs transforming, issues of power and powerlessness, uh, issues around abuse or violating the earth. I mean, the big issue here is power, powerlessness, and it's opposite Saturn. So within a couple months, it'll oppose Saturn, and we could literally say the timing is such, so whatever structures have been put in place, they need to be reviewed, or we need to confront those structures and the leadership that's put those structures in place. Then there's this T-square with Jupiter, Chiron, and Mars. So what would I say about that? Again, it's that theme of the wounded masculine coming to the forefront. And what does that mean? I mean, each of us probably has our own ideas of what that means, but it means it's out of balance, it's overdone. We lead too much by violence, conflict, polarization. And so with Jupiter squaring it and then this is by progression. So this is what's been happening. It's not a brief thing. We've been in it, we'll be in it still. It's like trying to come to terms with the wound around that and how much that's blown up, how big that is, trying to recalibrate our relationship with the masculine. So I'm coming to the end of the talk. Yeah, we've got a lot of time. So if there's personal questions, I'm happy to hear them. This image comes from Living Systems website, and this is going back to Ernesto. I wanted to again bring up that idea of what is the force that draws certain latent patterns out of the field of the potential and into the fact of the actual. What if we start working with and envisioning sustaining systems, living systems design, regeneration, regenerative practices? And I think most of you know what regenerative practices are. It's happening with farmers, with the soil. What creates regenerative soil? How do you keep those nutrients in the soil and not strip them back to just putting nitrogen on them? So this is a movement that's happening, that's coming into the foreground, that perhaps will lead us also into the future. This restorative, regenerative way of viewing our earth at this time. And I want to just encourage us all to hold this view, which can bring greater awareness in our day-to-day, greater relationship to those systems that we nurture, that we're involved with, and greater participation in the living intelligence of the whole, to keep reminding ourselves that we live in a creative, intelligent universe that's giving us information, that's helping us to navigate. So the astrology of today really reminds us that we're participating in this change. The feminine and the masculine, the deep and the high, trying to come together in new ways. and to move into a new era. That's what's trying to be birthed from this Aries vortex. But we also get to see our self-limiting way of viewing things and hold them up with what's possible and then make our choices. And this future that's arriving is emerging through us. Uh, it's through our choices, through our perceptions. It's about us now. It's about the collective now. Um, so we're standing at this threshold to awaken more of these visionary perceptions. We can think of Uranus as bringing them down. We can think of the ancient and the future coming together. And just remembering how we live in this intelligent universe that is moving toward more and more inclusive wholeness. So we can see this time as a profound initiation. And we could imagine if there's any initiations you've been through, you prepare for them, you fast, you take days to contemplate. We don't just run into them and go into 3 days out in the wilderness for the initiation. We listen to our dreams. This is a profound time for us to engage at that level. And each person has their own unique contributions, whether small or large, at this time. So, thinking about the initiation that happens at the end of something to the beginning of something, think about giving birth. So this is what I'm hoping to give to you today, and I'd love to hear anything you'd like to say in terms of feedback or thoughts about whether they're your fears or your hopes. And I am going to end the slideshow and come and see you. See if I can, let's see, here we go. Is there any comments anybody would like to make or questions you have, or how does this fit on the personal level? I'd be glad to address whatever is coming up for you. We have, yes?
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about the part of spirit and how I could find out where mine is.
Yeah.
Part.
Okay. Well, Carol, the part of spirit is a relationship between the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. And it's a formula. And I could, if you email me, I'll send you your chart with the part of spirit in it.
Okay,
Yeah. And,
thank you.
if there's other people that want that, I don't know if I could do it for everyone, but maybe we could have a class on it sometime. Um, you
Yeah, it's the
know,
first I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, in Arabian astrology, that comes from a big a big tradition that comes before the Greek, the Hellenistic astrology.
Mhm.
They have, I don't know, 100 parts. I mean, they work with a lot of parts. If you have the Astro Gold astrology program, which I think maybe some of you who've studied with me do, you can go into um, I forget what they call it, but there's a um, an area you can enter in the program where you can find out your part of spirit.
Yeah, I don't have that, so I'll
Yeah.
email you.
Yeah. Now, the part of spirit, so you think of it like this, the part of fortune, it's a little different in Hellenistic astrology. They say the part of fortune is what the situation and circumstances that you come into when you're born, you're familiar with it. So, for example, I have my part of fortune in Aries. So I come into my family of origin. There's a lot of Aries energy. So I feel familiar with that Aries energy. Okay. I have an Aries moon. My father was an Aries. My brother was an Aries. My younger brother has a good dose of Aries. My poor mom was Cancer, Pisces, Virgo, and my brother was very athletic. I was very athletic. I feel familiar with that Aries. I mean, shortness of temper at times, interrupting at times, very Aries. A certain amount of courage in certain areas. I definitely had physical courage. My part of spirit, my part of spirit is in Gemini, and it's conjunct my Jupiter. So basically, and it's in my second house. So basically, it says that even though Sue, even though I am, this Aries, I'm familiar with that Aries energy, um, which can be impulsive at times. For me to utilize and come into my destiny. So you can think of the part of spirit like, how do I utilize the energy of my chart and come into my destiny? Then I want to look at the part of spirit. So it says I've got to use my mind, my words. I have to integrate polarities, share my insights. And then because it's conjunct Jupiter, it brings in learning, teaching, expanding my view of things. So this is kind of a trajectory of my destiny is where the part of spirit is. Now you can look at a lot of details about the parts and it can go on, just like all of astrology goes on. But you get, just like I looked at its conjunct Jupiter, I can also know it's trining Neptune. Is there a square? Is there an opposition? That might show what's challenging for me to grab hold of my destiny. The other thing you can look at is, does the part of fortune and the part of spirit, do they harmonize? Are they in harmonizing signs? In my case, they are. So it can say I can utilize that Aries. Are they in squaring signs? If they're in squaring signs, then I'm working with kind of reconditioning myself not to be so identified with the part of fortune sign. So I hope that's a bit helpful. And
Yeah.
everybody is really interested in where their part of spirit is. Any other questions?
Hey, Sue, it's Kat. And I wondered if we could get Ernesto's article or a link to
Yeah.
that article.
Yes, I'm going to send that. And thank you so much to Maura for sending it to me. And speaking of Maura, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of that article or what you found so profound with it?
So my computer has gone wonky and I can't get my picture up any, or my, I'd probably have to close my computer. But for me, it offered a transition from the despair I've been feeling about the politics, the planet, all that stuff, into a really awakening possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of the future pulling forward also allowed action, um, not necessarily protests and letters and, all that ordinary things we can do, but action in the sense of sensing possibility within myself so that I can sense possibility in the uh, future for everything.
Yeah, well said, Maura. Do you see after going through the astrology how this astrology is supporting that?
Yeah, in a way I never have so fully before.
Yeah,
So it's like it opened up the familiar words and phrases and thoughts into a much deeper understanding.
yeah. I mean, I think, what struck me, because I guess I read this yesterday, uh, or maybe it was the day before, but what struck me is it was so easy for me to see that that's what the astrology was talking about and
Right.
what I try to deliver, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep it grounded in your experience of what's happening in the world. And so it was such a beautiful um, framing from a whole other discipline of just what you said, of what's possible and how we participate with it. And this idea of not only from the past, but pulling us in the future. I definitely feel like that's what the transits do because we can see the transits go into the future. And so to take astrology or feel astrology at that level, it's kind of like feeling the higher archetypal expression of those planets that we're capable of, but to have it supported by a different discipline. And I bet there's several different disciplines. He's a regenerative practitioner, there's the living systems practitioners. Um, it's exciting.
Right. Really exciting. It's that excitement that brings the openness.
Exactly. Excitement and inspiration. And then as we gather in groups to be able to share this with each other
Mhm.
helps us grow it. So I really appreciate that you sent me that article, Laura. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Well, and for if I can speak for the group, it's very important that we got to hear it too, because I can't tell you in my cohort, this is Kat, that there's so much craving for this kind of connection and trying to figure out how to and be more light and bring more light into these desperate situations or
Mhm,
feelings that we're
mhm,
having. So I appreciate both of you
mhm.
for giving us this opportunity to share with us, share all of this information.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Kat. I'm sure Maura did this. I think you told me this more, but I did sign up for a Substack, and that the article is from Substack. And when I send you what Maura sent me, you'll see you can sign up for his Substack because, it's going to open the door to all those kinds of thinkers. And there's a lot of this going on. I mean, there's a lot of people that are working right now at visionary possibilities in revising systems that people with a lot of background in that area that can go into groups or institutions and revise the systems, update the systems so they can be more regenerative, more sustaining. I mean, what we're at this threshold of moving forward in life sustaining practices or digressing into non-life sustaining practices. And I think that, if you look at the astrology of the United States, of Donald Trump, of Pluto, return and Pluto on our south node, it's like we had to see all of this. We had to see all of the old material, the old prejudices, the old way of thinking, and also the forgotten. We had to see all of it, get everything on the table in order to start this new era. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Mhm. I, I have a comment. Comment, Sue.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's great. I love I love hearing that all of this is so wonderful. I have one simple question. The last statement that you made when you were talking about the initiation and the ancient towards the future,
Hmm.
what time frame did you put on that?
The initiation.
Yes, you
Uh-huh.
said when
Yeah.
the ancient goes to the future, and then
Well,
it's an
well,
initiation period.
yeah, we're in that right now. And we could look at, let me just, I mean, this Aries vortex, and the return of Pluto and Uranus to the United States, natal Pluto and Uranus is all a part of this
Okay,
initiation. And that Aries vortex, Saturn will leave, Saturn will go on, but the outer planets are still aligned in that Aries vortex. And it's basically going on. I mean, Richard Tarnas might have said 2033, but I'm just looking through the ephemeris. I can see already May 2029, it's still happening.
okay,
So it's going on for a
okay. So it's a
while.
while.
Yeah,
Great. Yeah, thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, it's gonna need a while. That's great.
I'm also reading a book by Michael Pollan
Yes,
called The World Appears,
the
which is
world
basically,
appears.
yeah, it's about consciousness.
Yes.
And I'm only about a third of the way through, but I'm reading the chapter about plants, and he's exploring the consciousness of plants. And I have learned so much about plants and how they communicate and how there is a certain amount of consciousness that they have.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating book.
Is this his brand new book?
Yes, it is.
Does he talk about going into that cave room that the Buddhist woman teacher sent him in to reflect? I heard that interview by him.
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
Uh-uh.
he's an important figure in terms of bringing forward perspectives on this time right
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Could you
you're
repeat
welcome.
that name again and book?
Michael Pollan, The
The
World,
world appears.
The World Appears. Thank you,
Thank
Carol.
you.
You're welcome.
Well,
Sue,
yeah.
this is Mara. One other comment I have is about this shift is actually physiologic. It's not just thinking.
Yes.
And so to sustain that, for me, it's a pattern of many, many years that I call the small dailies. In every day, I find something beautiful, something interesting, some moment of joy, some connection, some smile, a child's laughter out of the stroller.
Hmm.
I walk by the ocean most days. Uh, Same path, always different.
Hmm.
And I feel like this is what holds me uh, from sinking into despair and negativity.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the beauty of the earth and really experiencing where we are and what it is. Thank you for saying that. Well, we've come to the end of the time. Is Suzanne here?
It's here.
Haven't seen her.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
She's not here to take us out. So we'll just let Maura have the last word there. And it was a beautiful last word. And thank you, everybody, so much for participating today. I feel like it's really important. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sending you the article And then I will send the slides and everything I do.
Great.
So you can listen to it again. So I'm going to stop the recording and then I can look at everybody.